While most applications offer services for free, some apps actually charge a small amount. Let's take a look.
As people born in the 1980s and 1990s are becoming parents, more and more parents are willing to use apps as part of their children's education. There are roughly 140 million young children in China, which puts a conservative estimate of the early childhood education app market at around 100 million users. 55% of the 200 most popular educational apps in China target young children, and more companies are entering the market to get a piece of this massive pie. Li Yangdan, a brand analyst at Sandian Yike, a company specializing in brand promotion and sales, shares her predictions for the future development of early childhood education brands.
Jili
is a completely free software, and I haven't found any sales channels inside the app either. However, it has a model that combines social media and e-commerce. So maybe once it's gathered all these mothers, they might start to buy parenting products, toys, and books there. Donut is taking on a rather important task, in that it's where the entire New Oriental Group, as a brand, shows its new media sales strategy. So it doesn't face any less pressure to gather paid downloads and become profitable than the other two.
New Oriental opened a donut kindergarten in 2016, and several donut books are selling well. Now Donut plays a decisive role in the entire corporation strategy.
Donut will definitely become important in one of our company's 3 strategic focus areas. These areas are the traditional university market, the K-12 market, and then there's what we would call the young children market. This is the age when children start learning, and because we want to cover the entire product chain, we want to be able to promote our educational philosophy from this age on. This includes our various methods, like preschool entertainment. I believe that if we begin to shape them from a very young age, we will be able to pass on our education methods and philosophy step by step.
Babybus began building its animation team 1 year ago. Tang Guangyu realized that while smart TVs contained a great amount of educational cartoons, very few were created in China. As on-demand TV is becoming more common, Babybus is positioning itself to match this new development.
Babybus is a purely commercial software. First of all, in terms of payment, it has many possible paths to become a profitable service. It has done very well in another important area, which is intellectual property. The company has this logo, these 2 little pandas, that they are working hard to build into a brand. In the future, they might use animated series or even movies and different spin-off products like toys and books to promote themselves further. This is one of their strengths.
China changed its one-child policy to allow parents to have 2 children in 2016, which has led many to predict a peak in childbirths in 2017, giving a boost to the consumer base of early childhood education tools. Many investors have already begun preparing for the opportunities that this demographic growth may bring, but the timing and direction of their investments will decide whether they will be able to bring in profits.
Professor Jia, in this day and age, when it comes to internet-offered services, customers and consumers almost expect it to be free. So do you think these applications that actually do charge a fee have a future when competing with the free ones flowing around the markets right now?
It's a great question, Tracy. I think in today's world, especially when it comes to the internet and applications, I think consumers definitely have greater bargaining power than service providers. So if you want to charge your consumers app downloads, you have to make sure your product and services is at least 10 times better than your competitors vendors, right? Which actually is quite difficult, in today's world without proprietary technologies. So it's going to be very difficult. So coming back, I think for companies like Baby Bus, what they're looking for in terms of new source of revenue, one is to generate IP. So IP is a very powerful sort of mechanism to generate future revenues. A lot of cartoon companies do that. One successful example would be 喜羊羊 and 灰太狼, that cartoon. So once you have that IP, you basically start to cultivate loyalty, among viewers, and you can basically sell related products, like stuffed toys and clothing, and etc. And alternative source of revenue, I think, would be to offer some related services, some value-added services, right? So I think these are two potential ways, going forward.
I see. We talked about how children pretty much like the same thing. That makes it easy for Baby Bus sort of start to expand to global markets a lot earlier than a lot of other Chinese startups. What are some of the benefits and challenges faced by a company that try to go global so early?
Right. It's a great question, Tracy, because we know in China, as we talked about, most of startup companies focus on local market first before they reach out to the global arena. If you look at even for companies like BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, they were a local company from day zero, and they actually remained as a local company for a number of years. Baidu was founded in 1999, close to 2000, but did not roll out its globalization strategy until 2008, where it entered into the Japanese market. Right? So we're talking about 8 years. But this Baby Bus company is one of those few companies startup companies in China who were actually a global company from day zero. Right? They are selling into markets outside of China. So the upside is obvious. It gives you greater exposure, right? Also diversify your corporate risk, right? And basically help you to build an international brand early on. But the downside is also very obvious. Each market is different. Each country is also different in terms of institutional factors, in terms of the regulatory requirements, right? So for some of these companies, for example, I heard that when Baby Bus went into an overseas market a couple years ago, it ran into this challenge where that country required certain protection of children under age of 13, so it does not allow the company to locate the physical location of their users, right, without the user permission. But this practice and action is actually not prohibited in China. So basically, certain actions are allowed in this part of the world. It doesn't mean it's also allowed in other parts of the world. So when you go out into other foreign markets, there are certain lines you have to watch out for, and you really have to understand that market before you go out. Right? So that requires additional expertise, that requires additional experience, and you have to make sure you have the managerial bandwidth to manage all these overseas expansion, which actually is not easy for a startup company.
That's right. Professor Jia, we talked so much about early children education. Can you talk about the future prospects for some sort of this smartphone application-based education tools?
Sure. I think this market is really easy to enter. It seems like this is a market without much entry barrier. But the reality is, if you look at the companies competing in this market, we haven't seen a single winner yet, right? We talked about New Oriental. I know for a fact this company has been thinking for a long time how to enter and capturing this early childhood education market because they have all the other programs, so they want to build up an ecosystem. But so far, their brand name, their online presence is still not as well known as their offline presence, their education, English, especially English education programs. So you can see that this is a market where competition is fierce. The companies are still trying to figure out, what is sort of the demand, the actual demand that users have, and address these demand. So that's actually not easy. For my perspective, I'm also in the education business. So I think this online education going forward will be a nice complement to the traditional offline education, but it's unlikely to replace the offline education altogether. Because education, after all, is still, you need sort of tailorized teaching experience. You need face-to-face interaction, with the students and with the faculty. You also need this group study experience. But online education, more or less, is a one-way sort of interaction, right? So, and there's no peer learning. So I think going forward, if we can find some sort of synergy between online and offline education, that would be ideal. But it's very unlikely that one will definitely rule out the other one.
I don't know if it's good news for all the students when they have a smartphone. You basically have to sit in a class 24/7, electronic leash from your professor, right? Well, thank you so much for all your insights today, Professor Jia.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Tracy.